top 25 list. So good stuff there. Appreciate everybody for being here this morning. Hit that like button for us. All right, we've been doing good on the likes. So I want to thank you all for that. Keep smashing that like. We're trying to get to 150 per show. So please do that for us if you're enjoying the content. Let's go to our main man, Mike Gill, who's set to join us now here on Birds 365. You can follow him at Mike Gill Show. You can subscribe to his YouTube channel at Mike Gill Show. Listen to him on the radio at 97.3 ESPN down the shore and 97.5 The Fanatic on the weekends. Mike, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, brother?
I'm staying cool, man. I'm staying cool.
Yeah, I hope it's a little bit cooler down there. A little bit of an ocean breeze because it's brutal inland, Mike Gill.
I would imagine it's a little better here, but not much. Yesterday was rough, but yeah, I imagine
hottest
up there
day in 13 years. I was told.
Yeah, my app said hottest in 5 years, so I guess we didn't quite catch the double-digit years, but it was a hot one yesterday.
Yeah. You can probably tell it's June 25th. I'm not sure when you popped on there. I wasn't paying attention when you popped in the green room, but when you hear the names Taylor Morin and Charlie Eulich, do you know it's June 25th?
Yeah,
Mike Gill.
Yeah, I guess this is the one, on Monday's show, I had said we are now officially inside 1 month until training camp.
Yeah.
But that 1 month is the slog. It is the one that moves the slowest, it feels like. But this is the list month, right? Where you see all these crazy lists where Nick Sirianni's not a good coach.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was going there.
Jalen Hurts isn't apparently a very good quarterback. It's one of these where it's not only list month, my boss is on my ass because I need more clicks. So what can I do to get clicks? Oh, I'll just say Jalen Hurts is, bottom of the barrel.
Worse than Dak Prescott. We got some guy from Yahoo said Dak was better than Jalen Hurts and Jaden.
The Jalen Hurts one is more. I don't know, what the criteria is. If you're just saying in terms of skill set, arm value, accuracy, those things. If he hadn't won a Super Bowl and you just said, look, his arm's not this, or his accuracy's not that, or his numbers aren't here, you could probably make a valid, argument to say, just watch this guy, whatever. But the fact that he's won a Super Bowl and then won as much as he was over kind of takes the fact that his skill set might not be what you perceive to be the best or a top five.
My question to you is, because you're on the radio down the shore, you're on the radio up here, you get a lot of feedback. Why do fans get so immersed in these list season? It's like one dude. Try to get clicks, by the way. Probably.
I talked about that Sunday. I was on 97.5 on Sunday, and I just said, I'm over those lists. I'm over the list of somebody telling me that Hurts is number 10 or 11. Who cares? Who cares if some guy who needs to put a list together for the summertime said this? Why does it bother you so much? The end result is he won the Super Bowl. He could be 27 on that list for all I care. What's the difference of where he lands on that list? Same with the Sirianni stuff. I mean, PFF, he was number 8 or 7 or something in that range. Is he the best coach in the league?
Yeah.
Is he the best coach in the league? Probably not. He won the Super Bowl, though. That's the answer. The answer to the question is he won the Super Bowl, not is he the best coach in the league? Because quite frankly, I'm not sure he's the best coach in the league. What makes the best coach in the league? Does winning the Super Bowl, is that the only criteria to make you the best coach in the league? Because there are plenty of people about Sirianni and say that he only gets in the way. And to those people, he won the Super Bowl while not being the best. So you don't have to be the best to win the Super Bowl. You are capable of winning the best or the 8th best or the 10th best.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
I used to have this conversation.
People.
I maybe I had it with you over the years. I used to have this conversation, and people would look at me like I was nuts when I would say it. When he was still in his prime, and I was covering the NBA, people in the NBA had tremendous respect for Larry Brown. X's and O's coach, just knowing basketball. And I would say, just from a technical standpoint, he's a better coach than Phil Jackson. People would look at me like I was insane because, Bill's got 100 rings and I would try to explain, you don't understand what I'm saying. There's different types of, you're in different positions. Vic Fangio is a great example. The guy's been coaching forever. He finally got over the hump. But everybody knew before he got over the hump, he was the best defensive coordinator in football. That's why everybody copies him. If you have 4-win talent, great coaches are going to get you 6 or 7 wins. That right. To me is a great coach.
Yeah. And I often talk about, in this town, for whatever reason, we love to blame the coach, especially in baseball and in basketball. And I remember, this is when I was going up to the Sixers a lot, and I was talking to some of the Sixer beat guys, and this is back when Maurice Cheeks was the coach, and you would say, is Maurice Cheeks a good coach? And they would say, if you have 35 win talent, Maurice Cheeks will get you 35 wins. And if you have 45 win talent, Maurice Cheeks is good enough to get you 45 wins. But there's only a handful of coaches in certain sports that if you have 45 win talent, they're going to get you 48 wins. Like, whatever the talent you're given in basketball, the coach could be giving you a game here, a game there, sneak one out. But over an 82-game season, if you have 45 win talent, you're probably getting 45 wins, as long as the coach isn't a complete obliteration.
Yeah. Well, and I think you saw it in the finals. I
think I've heard that word a little too much over the last couple of days. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oklahoma City's coach, I think everybody would acknowledge that Rick Carlisle's a better coach than Mark Daigneault, however you pronounce his name. But he's got more talent.
But it's funny because Scott Miller, the baseball writer who just passed, by the way, that was crazy. I used to have him on my show from time to time. He just wrote the book about the baseball manager and how that role has changed so much. And you have these people screaming and yelling about, the lineups and why they take this guy out of the game and why they leave him in the game. And a lot of that stuff is pretty predetermined before the game even started. Hey.
Well, that's the thing I say about play calling. And football, by far, I think coaching is more important than baseball, basketball.
I would agree. That football, it's hard for the general manager who generally doesn't have a football background to tell them how to run every single play the entire game. That would be pretty insane because in football, you are calling every play for the most part. There's a handful of times where the quarterback might get into a 2-minute and he's in control, but the coaches are calling every single play. So yes, they do have much more of an impact on the outcome of the game than what
they certainly do when you compare it to other sports. But I do think that your point about most of that is predetermined. All that stuff is done during the week. 95% of the work is done during the week. Then you get the big Cheesecake Factory menu and you pick off the menu. 95% of it is done during the week.
Right.
I use
and the one thing for football too, and I think this is where Nick maybe doesn't get enough credit, where he excels in his role is what are the managers that David Sampson has a show now. He's a quirky guy. He was the manager of the Marlins when they won the World Series. I've had him on my show a few times. Very insightful stuff in terms of, what is the manager's role in today's game? And he said the manager's role now is to execute the plan put forth by the front office. In other words, before the game, when Zach Wheeler gets to 95 pitches, get him out of the game, and then you go to this guy. If he gets to 95 pitches in the 5th inning, go to Walker. If he goes to 95 pitches in the 6th inning, go to Walker. If he gets to 95 pitches and it's the 7th inning, go to Strom.
And by the way, Mike, that's why my interest in baseball, which I love, has somewhat waned for things like that. Clark Schmidt of the Yankees had a no-hitter through 7 innings the other day. And I think it was at 90 pitches. I believe he was at that number. And to your point, they removed him, and everybody's killing the manager for why let it. It's Clark Schmidt. It's not Sandy Koufax. He may never have another chance to have a no-hitter. That to me is an exciting regular season baseball moment that they have stolen from us.
Yeah, I was gonna say it has dissipated in that. But so what is the role of coach, manager? Nick, you've got 53 personalities, egos, guys. You've got to manage those, and you've got to have them all buying in and believing in their roles, explaining to them their roles. They are culture setters. And if you talk to NBA front office people, a lot of them would say, I would hire the guy who can connect with the players and set the culture of the locker room over the X and O guy, because the X and O's of the league are not what they used to be. This is a players first, one-on-one, shooting threes. It is more of being a culture setter, and that's in almost all of the leagues.
But here's where I push back. Yeah, I push back on you. It isn't Philadelphia. I think still the vast majority of cities and ownerships and organizations want the play caller. Ben Johnson.
Well, yes, in terms of the football coach, but I think what you are seeing now is teams. Detroit said, let's get a culture setter and then get the coordinators around that guy. Ben Johnson.
There's a couple. Yeah, there's a couple. Yeah. Detroit's one of them, and they generally are successful, which is I've been pushing the CEO coach thing dating back to Tom Coughlin, because he's the guy I first talked to it about and explained it to me. And I thought, yeah, that makes more sense to me. But the vast majority of the league is still in the mindset of, I got to get, Mike McDaniel's a good example. You already had, maybe not to the level of Ben Johnson, but Mike McDaniel was similar, nerd, great play caller, innovative, this, that. You've seen what's happened in Miami, what's going on now. The guy's a dead man walking. He can't run a football team. Yeah, he's still the same smart guy offensively.
You're right, though. Some of these teams are still running their organizations the old school way, where they're finding the innovative play caller and then making that guy the head coach. We see so many. Vic Fangio wasn't a great head coach. He is better suited to be, hey, I'm the guy over here running one thing. Nick, in charge here, running everything. And then I have my guy who's calling plays over here, separating them into 3 separate boxes and finding the streamlined ability to get everyone on the same page is not easy to do. That's why some people try to say, let's get one guy to do 2 different things, right? Let's get the defensive-minded guy to run the team and then also run the defense. It's a way to kind of knock one guy off the perch, but it's probably taking a shortcut, and it's not, it's probably not the best way to go about it in today's NFL.
I do think it's interesting too that people act like, being the CEO is like easy, or like a lot easier than being a play caller. And you look at Fangio and Sirianni, I think it's the perfect example of 2 different guys with different personalities, and they relate to their players in different ways. And they they're suited better to do different things. Vic Fangio wasn't, a great head coach. Now, maybe that was because it was Denver or whatever, but he's great, perfect coordinator. And him and Nick are very different, and Nick has worked out very well as a head coach. I do think that it's kind of taken for granted how hard it is to be a good.
It's like everything. Like, if you grew up football, I'm almost 50, so I can't believe I just said that. But,
I wish I was almost
back then. When we're growing up playing football, to be the running back, that was the star of the team. I want to be the running back. That's the guy who's the star of the team. And therefore, the guy who is calling the plays is also the star. He's the guy. So we all perceive that if you're the guy calling the plays, that you are the man in charge. That's the grand poobah who picks all the plays. And so therefore, we have this weird obsession that if you're not calling plays, then you're insignificant, because, you must not be good enough if you can't call the plays. Where I always look at it and say, the game itself, managing the game, is a much more important role than, what am I calling on third down and 7? Yeah. Like, in the moment, 3rd down and 7 seems like a big deal. But in the grand scheme of the entire game, managing that game is way more important than, it's 2nd down and 11. What am I calling on my Burger King sheet here? Like, that is an insignificant kind of moment, as opposed to How am I managing the clock? How am I calling timeout? But all that
the macro
stuff.
big picture. I agree.
Yeah. And I think we're just ingrained. We're so ingrained to the guy calling the plays. He's the guy in charge. And it's just like it's going back to the first Tecmo Bowl where those 4 plays came up on the screen and you're like, I got to pick the right play. And that became so important.
Yeah. I think the 2 best offensive coaches of this generation are Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan. And both have had tremendous time management issues over the years. Why do you think? Because they get bogged down in the moment of what to do, and they have game management issues. And
how many times in the Nick Sirianni era have we been complaining about time management problems, timeout usage? Very, very minimal.
And when it does happen, it's usually the result of poor execution. Wasn't a bad decision. But I always say, and I've been saying for years, people don't judge play calls; they judge play results because they don't know what's called, they don't know what's good, they don't know what went wrong. Maybe the left guard. I say all the time, maybe the left guard missed a block, and it blew up a perfectly designed play call. You never know. So they're judging the result of the play; they're not judging the play call. Same thing with decision making. You might make the right decision and get a bad result. That doesn't mean if you continually stack good decisions, you're going to get more good results. And game management is a big part of why Nick Sirianni gave play calling to Shane Steichen. Now, people don't believe that. People say, well, he couldn't handle it, so he gave. No, he was not happy with the way he was managing games and said, you know what? I trust Shane. We're going to game plan together. We're going to put it together. The sheet's already done. And he all of a sudden magically became a better game management coach. Those 2 things are not, that just didn't happen. It's because he could put more attention into those things you're talking about, the bigger part of the game, which is the kind of coach I'd rather have, to be honest. And I was saying that long before Nick did it.
Right. And I don't know that being the game managing coach is ever going to be glamorous. Like, that's never going to be something that is like star written on it. You are the star when you are the play caller. You are the star when you are the scorer.
You're Ben Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. Sean McVay is a guy who, you used to come on my show and say, if you shook hands with Sean McVay, you got a job interview. Like the whole league was getting hired because they had some connection to Sean McVay. And some of those guys have been successful too, by the way. The guy in Minnesota, it's June 25th. I'm forgetting head coach's names. The guy in Cincinnati has been
Zach Taylor. He made a Super Bowl.
So he has had McDaniel's in San Francisco, but some of these guys who have been connected to coaches, they are pretty innovative, but they have they've lacked that one, and Cincinnati has those problems with the game management. A lot of the times their problems there, Minnesota's, we'll see. They just kind of came on the scene recently. We'll see what happens with the quarterback, obviously. So I think Nick is very, very, very underrated because of the fact that he doesn't call.
Well, and we don't know because it's difficult to get head coaching salaries. All I've gotten with Nick's contract is it's not bigger than Andy's. But it would not surprise me in the least if Ben Johnson is making more money than Nick Sirianni, which is insane to me. I'm not saying it's the case, but
you're an opportunist. You're an opportunist in the moment to somebody who's weakened by a deficiency at that spot. When you become so deficient at that spot over and over and over, you overspend, and he's the opportunist that happens to be in the moment.
Yeah, I don't blame him, by the way. I don't blame Ben Johnson.
But the result becomes he gets an overpay over everybody else that is more deserving.
Yeah. But if he didn't have that reputation, like Nick as a first-time head coach was not a big name.
It's like everything in this world today. You just brand yourself the right way and you can make it. Just show that you're the best play caller out there and you can get the big contract. You had the number one offense in the league. You get the big deal. I mean,
yeah, that's easier said than done, though.
Everybody is able to be branded towards. And if you brand McCaskey, is she still the owner in Chicago?
Good question. Somebody passed. I don't. That's a good question.
Yeah, who's
Kevin
running Chicago these days?
Oh, Kevin Warren runs the team.
Yeah. All you had to do is brand yourself to the right person and say, hey, I'm the most innovative coach in the league. You have a void at that spot. I'm only going to come there if you make it worth my while. Well, we are so desperate, we will pay you more than the Super Bowl winning head coach. Will you come here now? Okay, sure. Very good branding by Ben Johnson.
George McCaskey is currently running the team as the controlling owner, but you don't hear a lot about that. I think that the McCaskeys, the Hallis McCaskey family, they generally stick their nose out, generally, which hasn't been necessarily a good thing. They've been a bad organization now for quite a few years. So
it's 1986.
So Kevin Warren runs the team, which is,
the Big Ten
commissioner. He's more of a business guy. That's the whole point. He left the Big Ten he was like the legal guy. He was the cheap legal guy from Minnesota, left that to run the Big Ten. And now he's running the Bears. So he's more of a business guy, or a legal guy, business/legal.
Which is another interesting conversation all the way down a different rabbit hole is the how these sports teams are becoming more and more and more business and less and less and less.
Oh, they're just getting bigger companies, dude. These are massive companies now.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting private.
It really, the NBA draft is tonight, so we got to get some draft talk in. But it's the off season. But boy, I see some of these NBA trades. All of them are about finances. They're not about players. It's about dumping players. It's about creating space. I don't know. It's not as exciting to me when you're actually trying to get a player and make it better.
I'll tell you what, it's funny. Game 7 the other night. Now, the ratings for Game 7 were actually pretty good, but the rest of the series were really historically bad. You get to Game 7. You have this moment. This team wins. And then it's almost like, on to the next. And the next day, you're spinning players off. It's like you're spinning players off to get to this moment that no one seemed to care about, just so we can get back to spinning players off.
And the draft is a couple days later. Yeah, they don't even give you time to breathe.
I'm watching these guys celebrate and the moment, and it's similar to like A.J. Brown said when they won the Super Bowl. It's like you go through this season of bitching and moaning and complaining, and they suck and they can't do this and they're not good enough. And then they win the Super Bowl, and A.J. Brown's like, it's not as good as I really thought it would be. It's like that moment just comes, and it's like, now what? Now you go back into another season where people will sit here and bitch and moan in the comments section all season long to win the Super Bowl. To then bitch and moan all season long again.
Well, that to me, AJ's comments didn't surprise me at all, because it never lives up to the hype. It's like, all right. And when you're as competitive as AJ, it's just like, then you start to realize.
It's the moment of these guys get paid so much money. And we as fans, you probably have seen this article, the June Lee article that was in the New York Times about how much fans spend just to watch their favorite teams. This is just to watch them on television or streaming platforms.
Yeah.
If you wanted to watch all 4 of the major sports teams, every single game, Eagles, Sixers, Phillies, Flyers. Now, he used Boston as the example, but I would imagine they're similar, because I think Boston is an NBC affiliate like Philadelphia is. NBC Sports Philadelphia. I think they're NBC Sports Boston. But he said the total price to watch everything, if you're a sports fan, this is without going to a game, purchasing a jersey, a T-shirt, a hat, nothing, was almost $5,000 in Wi-Fi streaming services. If you're a cable subscriber, YouTube TV, Hulu, and you're thinking like, you spend $5,000 to go on these journeys with these teams to bitch and complain all season long, And then if they do win, the euphoria of the one day is kind of like, well, my cable bill sucks, and so does my Wi-Fi bill. I mean, it's like,
I'm
what are
with
we
you,
doing
man.
here?
I'm with you.
Oh man,
Boy, man.
It's a crazy culture that we've created. It's fun. It's a fun, kooky, crazy. But I have suggested, like at some point this bubble is going to burst. Where can football just keep gouging? Can basketball, like, who do they think they are, right? Like baseball, like, how much can you continue to charge people? Like, you go to a game and it's lit. How do you look at someone in the face and say, hey, we're going to charge you $8 for that soda? You got to be fucking out of your mind to say to someone that Coke is charging is $8. Like, are we
I'm with
dumb
you.
that we
I'm
pay
with
it?
you. I don't know. Same thing with airports, because you can't go anywhere. They have you held hostage. Everything's marked up to a ludicrous degree. Why do we accept this? Why do we accept this as a society?
Nickel and dime to death, guys.
Yeah.
That's what we are.
Yeah.
I
Same
said
thing
it
with
should be
sports.
mandatory. It should be mandatory that every sporting event has a sectioned area in the building where there are $1 hot dogs, $2 hamburgers, $3 nachos, and that people who just want to go to a game one time and not spend $1,000. People tell me all the time.
Well,
I went to the game the other day. What did it cost you? It cost me $1,500. $1,500 to go to one game?
I'm lucky enough to where I don't have to pay for parking for sports events and all that kind of stuff. And I got news for you. I had no idea how it exploded over the years.
Well, because they're making all their money on TV, it no longer matters. Like, they don't need to make it cheaper to reach more people, right?
Well, that's true.
Well, and Zander, the key of that is, like, a lot of these teams only exist, especially in baseball.
Yeah.
They only exist as an entity because of the sharing. Why am I blanking?
Yeah, the league sharing with the TV deals. I know what you're saying. Yeah, they get paid out for that.
The Pirates, those type of teams, they only exist because of the sharing. Otherwise, the revenue sharing. Otherwise, without the revenue sharing, they don't even exist as an entity.
Yeah. So in other words, it doesn't matter if there's 8,000 people in my stadium or 40,000 people in my stadium. I don't really give a crap. And I don't care if I charge them $10 for a burger or $2 for a burger. I don't really care, because I'm making all my money on the TV anyway. 90% of my income.
They're making the money on the TV end. But in the NFL, right, those TV deals are so exorbitant that, the problem has become the TV deals almost set the salary cap. And as those deals go up,
they do.
Right. And as those deals go up, so does the salary. And when then salary again goes up, so does your ticket price. So it's like a never-ending wheel that's never going to go back the other direction, because the NFL has CBS would be out of business by now if they didn't have the NFL. Fox would follow them right out the door. And NBC probably would be third in line of saying, okay, we are ceasing to exist.
I'll tell you what, though.
To exist.
I'll tell you
if
what,
they did not have the NFL.
When ESPN bowed out of baseball, that shook some people.
Well, it shook people to the point where they're thinking, who does MLB think they are that they're going to go get another deal, and they can't find another deal because no one wants to pay $550 million to have Sunday Night Baseball on. So they went out and figured out, we'll go get another deal because you're on cable and you're a declining property. Well, guess what? So are all the other competitors who are trying to get your product on, because the streaming services, they don't want you on there because you don't draw enough casual fans.
Yeah.
Well, what's the breaking point on this, guys? I feel like it can't go like this forever.
People have been talking about the bubble has to burst for years, because I've done a lot of work on TV rights fees over the years. Now with the NFL, they're a little bit more protected because they are the one entity that delivers, like the NBA you just mentioned. The NBA is number 2 because of what they deliver, but what they deliver in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like the regular season ratings are god awful. And that's the same with baseball and hockey.
Well, and this story
college basketball is
the story was interesting.
Nobody watches
college basketball. The only thing anybody's watching literally is Caitlin Clark. She's it.
Yeah.
If you have her on the television, you're getting watched. They're getting 2 million people to watch a Caitlin Clark game. Other than that, no one's watching that league. other than LeBron, no one's watching, Curry, maybe. No one's watching regular season NBA games. Yet the prices are so exorbitant. It is wild. And then the only thing anybody's watching is the NFL. I mean, routinely, football, the top 100 shows now, like 97 of them are NFL games.
Well, I think at the core, like, let me ask you guys this. I think the other thing at the core, and that's the best thing that the NFL has going for them, is when an NFL game comes on, most of the viewers actually would rather watch that than anything else on TV. Versus when there's an NBA playoff game and you turn it on and it's a third quarter and it's a 20-point game, most people are like, I don't know, I only got a couple hours a night. I think I'd rather watch Netflix, or I think I'd rather put on Apple TV, or I think there's so many, or YouTube, or whatever it is. Yeah. And I think all these other sports leagues are now not in a position where people actually want to watch every night versus the NFL. There's nobody in Philly who's not watching the Eagles games when they come on. Come on. No way.
The NFL has something that the others don't, and it's an event-based viewership.
Scarcity.
1 day a week, 3 hours of my time. To go through a baseball season, 2.5 hours, 3 hours every single night, it's incomprehensible to think that you can get someone every night for 3 hours. The NBA, hockey, same thing. The NFL is 1 day a night for you for 3 hours, or 1 day a week for 3 hours.
They're trying to ruin that. I think it's a mistake by playing every day, at points. The thing about the NFL, and I get it because they're a business, if somebody's paying them, they're going to do it. And they're going to put a game on Black Friday, and they're going to put games on Thursday, and they're going to put a game, and eventually they'll be the entire week. If people keep cutting those checks, I do think that's sort of, a little bit penny wise, dollar foolish long term, because I think the importance is what you just mentioned, Mike, the scarcity of the product. It's event based.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the more,
which is why nobody watches college basketball, but they will watch the NCAA tournament.
Exactly.
It's an event based thing. Nobody watches the Waste Management Open, but they'll watch the Masters because they have made it a big event. Still, the Masters is.
Are we getting close to them getting away from that? I mean, if we think that's the bread and butter, I mean, me and John talked about a couple of months ago when the schedule came out. It's like the Eagles got games on Saturday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday. It's like every day of the week. I think they got games on 5 different weekdays this year. Yeah.
Well, it's like everything, remember the Little League World Series used to be one game on ABC for all the marbles. Well, now they're doing like the district tournament on. I mean, come on, you're broadcasting live from like the Margate Little League field because it's August and there's nothing else to put on the TV, but you now oversaturate that. The College Baseball World Series. I mean, it used to be you watch the final game. Now they're doing the regionals and the super regionals. And that used to be like a thing where you're like, hey, the College World Series is on. Well, now you're watching Murray State play, Kentucky in a regional. You're like, okay, not all that exciting. But, at some point, though, the problem has become the NFL started it. The NFL started it, and now everybody's trying to emulate what the NFL does. Is the only thing people are watching are live events, sports. NBC, can anybody name a sitcom or a television show on NBC, CBS, Fox?
I don't watch television shows on linear.
Nobody
TV
does. They don't even exist. They don't even have them.
Yeah.
Like if I'm watching a show
even
with
the boomers,
Netflix,
even you guys, even the boomers don't watch TV anymore, man.
No.
Honestly, and I don't know this, but I honestly don't think there are like they even called sitcoms anymore. There's no more like 30-minute quick shows.
Well, and that's another thing because reality television, which is not real, but it's cheaper to produce than a regular sitcom or even, God forbid, a drama, which can get pretty expensive. So if you can draw the same ratings with garbage, business, the math people ruin everything, Mike. But the thing, baseball, basketball, even at the highest level, should be concerned about ESPN bailing out of baseball, Warner Brothers Discovery, TNT bailing out of basketball because it got too expensive. Think about what that meant to that network, and they're like, "No, this is too much. We're bailing." They should be concerned about that. That's the first signs of, because
I
other
would
people are going to be.
I would imagine ESPN and baseball get back together because nobody wants the baseball.
Eventually, when they realize that you can't get enough money, but
baseball did this to themselves. NFL would never do this. They took a $10 million deal to put games on Roku, a service that nobody has. I mean, seriously, well, they put the service on Roku for $10 million. Well, you devalued your product so much that ESPN said they're getting a game a week on Sunday for $10 million. We're getting a game a week on Sunday night. We're paying you $550 million. Just don't add up. So they did it to themselves on that front there. The Apple TV game, nobody's watching those Friday night games. And by the way, I have Apple TV. You know what the pain in the ass of it is? Friday night, Phillies, Mets. I want to go out and watch the game somewhere. I don't know if the establishment has it because they don't have Apple TV. So on a Friday night, if I want to watch Phillies Mets, I almost had to say I have to stay home to watch that game because I can't trust that Charlie's Bar in Summers Point has the Apple TV on. So if you want Apple TV, don't give it to them on a Friday night when people want to go congregate and watch it. You want a game Wednesday night baseball. There you go. You get that game. That's the game you get. But instead, they take money.
I've had so many people talk about, and it's usually – a son that's getting a little bit older talking about his aging dad and like he doesn't know what channel the game's on. And it's like, you can't make it that difficult for people. You can't. They're creatures of habit.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like I said, I have Apple TV. So I'm not the guy saying, oh, Apple TV. I have Apple TV. I watched it. And by the way, their production is outstanding. I'd love to see what they're doing.
Production's amazing. And the problem is it's a pain in the ass. And I have it too.
Right.
My
buddy said, if you are home, you maybe you want to flip around and in between innings, maybe you want to check out what's going on somewhere else.
Yeah, right.
I get out of the app into something else. Yeah.
Right. Well, my buddy says Friday night, hey, you want to go watch the game somewhere? I said, well, the problem is it's on Apple TV. I don't know who has it. So you're calling around. Hey, do you have the Phillies game? Nah, it's on Apple. We don't have it tonight. So they've done that to themselves. Look what MLS did. They took the money and ran to Apple, and nobody – I mean, has anybody seen an MLS social media post in the last 3 years?
Those teams are getting – those teams are getting more valuable, whatever you mean valuation-wise. But
there's a crossroads here where – they took that money, so they're more valuable on the surface here. But where are you going to be 7 years from now? After
exactly. That's my point.
Money, but are you building the long?
That's my point. It's penny wise, a dollar foolish. You're grabbing the money right now at the expense of viewers for your product, and eventually, if nobody can find your product, nobody can see your product. Eventually, it's going to downgrade.
The person who integrates, I have YouTube TV. And in the guide, if somebody integrates the game from the other service into your guide, like, hey, Fox, CBS, NBC, ESPN, Apple TV Plus as a channel of a live game where you can – because YouTube TV now has the ability to flip to the last channel.
Mike, they're the closest thing to it, to being able to make it – usable like that for the
because like an Amazon Prime Thursday Night Football, when you have a Thursday Night Football game and you have YouTube TV, if you could put that in the guide so that if you're on, like for instance, the night the Phillies played in the World Series in 2002, they were on Fox, the Eagles are on Prime. If you could have had the last button flipping back and forth, the person who comes up with that will change the game in terms of until then you're going to keep frustrating people.
Yeah. Like cable is.
Cable's making a return. Cable's making a comeback.
I don't know if they are because they are losing viewers at massive numbers for the first time.
But I asked this question.
Talking about this.
I asked this question though, John. Is it cable that's losing the viewers? Does YouTube TV, Hulu, these live TV services, are they counted in the cable ratings?
No, they're streaming. They're streaming because they're streaming.
So the people who went from cable and cut the cord, like me, who went to YouTube, I'm not being counted in the ratings. Not that I was anyway, but you know what I'm saying.
Still kind of cable, Mike. I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
like exactly. I'm still watching the game.
Well, streaming is just streaming. It's a version of how it's delivered. So
I'm still watching the game, just not on cable connected. I'm watching on cable streaming.
Yeah.
Because my commercials are all different. Does everybody else get 975 Viore commercials?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Streaming, the problem with streaming, and, you know, everybody in the TV industry thinks that streaming is the future, as evidenced by, you know, recently Warner Brothers spun off its cable to a different company and it's streaming, and they made them two different companies because cable loses so much money and they ultimately think streaming is going to make a bunch of money. So for tax purposes, and NBC's doing the same thing with Versant. They're spinning off their cable companies and the streaming and trying to, bookkeeping type stuff. And the whole point of that is the belief that streaming is going to have a future and cable is not going to have a future. And for the first time, and Zander and I talked about this because it hadn't happened before, for the first time, streaming beat broadcast and cable combined. More people watch on streaming now than broadcast and cable for the first time. And number one is YouTube. Number two is Netflix.
Well, if the NBA final game did 17 million the other night, game 7, how many more people watched on YouTube and Hulu?
Well, and this is part of that's where I was going. This is part of the problem with streaming. That was a combined number. So people watching on, I think for that particular game, it was ABC and whatever ESPN Plus. I don't know what it was on, but that was a combined streaming broadcast number of whatever it was, 18, 19 million. And the NFL does that if you see, because they have enough power to demand demographic info from Netflix. This is the craziest thing in Amazon and everybody else. This is the craziest thing for me. Those streaming outlets do not provide ratings.
Right. Like Apple TV doesn't tell you how many people watch MLS. I got the answer.
They don't. But they don't even tell, like, Adam Silver doesn't know what NBA games do on HBO Max or whatever they call it now. They don't tell people, one, because the numbers aren't that impressive.
Right.
And two, because they have all that shitty advertising, because people are like, all right, well, if you're not going to tell us, we're not going to pay for advertising, because they're trying to target a specific demographic. So you have these goopy commercials they run 67 times because it's a weird situation.
I have a full closet with Viore now.
Yeah, and my girlfriend has been bought by all the ads as well. Every time I see her, I get a new pair of Viore shorts. I'm like, enough. I got enough Viore shorts.
Yeah. Anyway. All right, Mike's got to go. We're keeping it. Yeah. See, we get engrossing discussions at Mike Gill Show. Make sure you follow him on X, Twitter, whatever you call it. 97.3 down the shore during the week, 97.5 up in Philadelphia on the weekend, Sundays. Make sure you listen to him. YouTube, subscribe at Mike Gill Show.
Mike, thank you, brother. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, bud.
All right, there's Mike Gill joining us here on Birds 365. Give us a little extra time there. Good conversation, though, John. I mean, it is interesting where the sports world is going. And if my girlfriend's listening, I love my Viore shorts. I apologize. But, no, it's funny because Mike is right. Those ads are everywhere, and they all dominate the streaming. But it's interesting, John. Like, you know what it reminds me of, too? And, people are going to take this probably and run with it. But there's that thing I used to see on social media all the time from, like, the World Economic Forum a couple of years ago. And it's like, you will own nothing and be happy or something. And I'm like, yeah, that's how I feel every time I see all these subscriptions hit my damn card every single month.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. And that's why I was talking about. I didn't get in, but parking. I didn't realize how much parking was.
Oh, dude, it's crazy.
Like, I'm like, I don't know how people do this or would want to do this. Like, like, no offense to NFL, NBA, anybody. Like, when I do retire, I'm not going to sporting events. I'm not paying for that garbage.
It's just too expensive. It is. It's just too expensive.
I mean, you got to be kidding me. Especially when you have 4K, as you mentioned, Apple TV. I mean, it's a much better. Just watch it on television. But yeah, and then the product. At some point, I've always said the product is just not as good. And I'm like, when are people now? You know, if you grew up with it, older people have obviously, you know, yeah, and this is not about nostalgia, because I acknowledge pretty open-minded, and I'm like, I if you listen to me, I'm the one who defends sort of the stuff that's more innovative than the typical older guy, and I'm just talking about the aesthetics of the game. I talk about it all the time. The NBA was better. The athletes are better now. That's a different conversation.
Yeah, completely different. Yep.
How the game was played was better. Baseball, not even close. How the game was played was better. Football, same thing. I can't speak to hockey because I'm not as big as a hockey guy. But of those three major sports, which I've all been a fan of, and a large part of it is, and it's not their fault. The organizations have figured out these are the ways you win games, and analytics have become a bigger thing, but at the expense of the beauty of the games. And that's why I always say the leagues are, their responsibility is different. Like the Philadelphia Eagles' responsibility is to win. And that's why they do the things they do. And I don't blame any organization. Theo Epstein in baseball, if you want to go back to Billy Beane, I don't blame any of those guys. Their job is to win, card count, so to speak, and figure out the advantages. But if you see something, we talked about this with the tush push, I don't want to get into it, but if you see something that's not aesthetic and you think it's hurting your game as a league, whether it was Bob Gibson being too dominant or Denny McLain being too dominant in baseball, Will Chamberlain, we always talk about, too dominant. Then you change the game to make it more exciting, more aesthetic. It happens in every sport. To me, it's slowed down. Like baseball, it was the easiest fix when they all went to the shift and it became so boring. It's like, that to me, I was yelling on the air for years. I was like, that is the easiest fix in the world. 2 infielders on one side of second base, right. 2 infielders. It is the easiest fix in the world. They finally did it, but it took them forever.
Took them so long.
You know, some of the other things are more difficult. Football is difficult because, look, you don't have practice time. You don't have time to prepare. So you got to dumb things down.
But I also think football is so much more insulated than these other sports. Like, for example, I mean, hockey, we had this discussion a while ago. It was one of our famous debates, but, you know, you're right about it in terms of what's going to happen when this ESPN deal gets up with them. Right now, ESPN paid all that money for hockey. The ratings are not good. They're not going up. Like, is ESPN going to renew that deal?
Somebody will.
Or whoever has it.
But the key is, will they renew it at the same price?
Yeah, I don't think
to this point, everything's gone up. Everything's gone up. Everything's gone up. Now, baseball's the first time it's going down.
Yeah.
Basketball still went up. The most recent deal was absurd. But again, it might be, it's hard to call it penny wise when you get that much money, but you know, you're going to Amazon, you're going to Peacock instead of, you know, TNT was basketball, because as stupid as the show was, and, you know, inside the NBA was so popular, for whatever reason, people resonated with that. Now, supposedly they're going to bring it over to, I don't know how they're going to work that, but
yeah, it's not going to be as good.
Yeah, people just resonate. TNT was basketball for many, many years. Now you're telling people, we're going to Amazon. The big check. We're going to Peacock and NBC. Big check. So the money's still there for them. Hockey, we'll see. Baseball's down. Pro wrestling, it's been up. We'll see, though.
I feel like pro wrestling is dominating too. I don't know what their ratings have been, but I feel like
they're.
that's
I mean, WWE is pretty much number one on television. Now their ratings are down from where they were, but comparatively,
right? Comparatively, what's it look like? Because everybody's ratings are down from. I guess
comparatively,
the NFL.
You know, SmackDown's number one almost every week on cable, which is 18 to 49. That's the key number. It's number one in 18 to 49. You know, they put their developmental show on the CW, which is it gets the best ratings on that network. Netflix, though, they moved from USA to Netflix for Raw. I don't know what the fuck they're doing there. The people watch on that a lot of people watch, but as many on cable, no way. Yeah. So that was, but they paid them $5.
Future, or is that like we talked about whether you're jumping a dime to pick up a nickel in a way, you know what I mean? But I don't know, are you doing that with a company like Netflix where maybe it takes a little bit of time, but is the value?
Oh, that's the bet. That's
10 years from now, right? Like, yeah, is that the right spot to build?
That's the bet. And they got a $5 billion deal. But there's an out after 5 years, and Netflix out. So we're going to see after 5 years.
Yeah.
Is it working?
I do think it's taken longer than people think. I think they thought that this was quick. Yeah.
Definitely taken longer than TV people think. I
think part of the reason it's taken so long is the cost barrier. I mean, you just heard Mike break it down. It costs thousands of dollars a year to be a sports fan. The majority of sports fans are, what's the average person in America make right now? 60 grand, 50 grand, 60 grand. I mean, people can't afford that.
I'll tell you, their thought is, and it's horrible, but these are business people. When people age out, that's a nice way of saying when people die.
Yeah.
And their belief is that younger people and younger people are more apt to watch streaming.
Younger people are also harder to win over because they all got TikTok brain. They got 450 things that they can watch.
Well, exactly.
Instagram. I can load up Instagram. The second I'm bored of Instagram, boom, I go over to Twitter. Second I'm bored of Twitter, I go to YouTube. When I'm bored of YouTube, I go to the baseball game for 10 minutes. Then you know what I mean? Like that's a tougher audience and a short-term audience.
Very short attention span audience. Very apt to lose interest quickly. Yeah, I don't think it's working out the way they thought it is, to be honest. And I don't know where Netflix makes their money. Obviously, I do, due to a certain degree. Yeah, most of it is subscription, but look, their market cap is unbelievable. I think it's 500. I'm just looking it up. $544 billion worth. 18th most valuable company in the world. It doesn't hold up, man. Like there is a reckoning coming for that company. I don't know when, but when you say valuation, market cap 545, they don't have $544 billion.
No, how much cash reserves do they have? Because one company that is insulated from that is Apple. They got so much money in cash. I mean, Apple's insane. They got like $500 million of cash sitting, I think, in their accounts. I mean, they don't need it, or $1 billion. I don't know what it is. It's a lot of money, though. I know that.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, you could look at where they were in 2005.
Yeah, they got $65 billion of cash on hand, John. Apple.
Yeah, but I'm not talking because Apple's much more grandiose and spread over.
Which, by the way, they've gotten shit over the years too. They used to be innovating. Now they're not innovating at all.
Yeah, well, that's and quickly. That's how things can quickly turn. Because Netflix 20 years ago, people are sending back DVDs and hey, this is pretty cool. I don't have to go to freaking Blockbuster Video anymore. And now 20 years later, they're spending billions of dollars on programming. And boy, I just don't know how it holds up at its current state. and they're already selling advertising now. You can see that, oh shit, we got to get other avenues of you can already see it. So I don't know, but if TV money ever goes away, and it doesn't matter who it comes from, linear, broadcast, cable, streaming, if it ever goes away, these sports are screwed.
I wonder what's
all
gonna
of them, including the NFL. I think people don't realize how much money of the NFL's comes from TV rights.
Yeah, we're playing Jenga, John.
It really is. It really is.
One block goes the wrong way. You pull one block out the wrong way. This is going to crash. I hope we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening with it. But I do think it's
it's not going anywhere. But
no, but something. I mean,
salaries will dramatically drop. You know.
Yeah.
It'll just be a different level of. But to date, the NFL is obviously the most well insulated. But as big as the NBA is, as big as Major League Baseball is, as big as the NHL is, they're in danger. And it's already borne out in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I agree completely. I agree. I mean, MLB is starting to do some things maybe to try and more insulate themselves. I saw they did a media deal with like John Boy, and it's like, oh, well, welcome to the 21st century and MLB. We can finally use your clips on social media. They used to like flag anybody that would post their clips on social media. And it's like, guys, you're killing the audience on your product. So I don't know. We'll see what they do. But I do think the money is crazy. We'll discuss more about that eventually soon. We'll see how it all shakes out. I appreciate everybody for being here today. Let me make sure I got all of our super chats. Eduardo checks in. Nobody wants to pick up a book nowadays, SMH. A book. And we can't even get them to turn on the TV. A book.
It's hard enough to get them to read an article, never mind a book. I mean, there really is
a book reader, John?
Yeah. Well, don't have much time, but I'm a big nonfiction guy. I don't like fiction. I don't read fiction. I haven't read fiction. I can't
do it either. It's so funny you say that. Yeah, I can't do it.
If it didn't happen, I have no interest in it. I have none. Zero.
Eduardo, thanks for the super chat, brother. Appreciate all of you guys being here right now. Hit that like button. I don't know what we're up to today, but a great segment with Mike Gill, a great opening segment on the top 25 Eagles. Number 20 on the list, Jake Elliott. That's the newest Eagle, so we'll get to 19 tomorrow. As Sports Illustrated, we follow Johnny Mack and Ed Kratz as they make their top 25 list. And then a great segment with Mike Gill. Good conversation about Nick Sirianni as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that, and I do want to talk about Nakobe Dean coming up. All right. I don't know what the future is on Nakobe Dean. I want to talk about Ty Robinson a little bit. A lot of hype put on a first-year player in Ty Robinson. And then I also want to do, if we get to it, we're a little late. I didn't realize we're already 4.
We kept Mike. Yeah. Sometimes I'm getting spoiled by Jeff Kerr. Jeff's like, he'll go forever, but Mike's got to go to work. So
yeah. Mike had some shit to do. He's like, yo, guys, get me out of here. So good stuff with Mike. The other thing I want to do, John, think about this. Maybe we'll do this before the other segments because we'll have probably more of an opened up show tomorrow. 10 Eagles, top 10 Eagles you trust the most this year, but the offensive line can only be one.
Mm-hmm.
I can't have you list. I trust Lane. I trust Jordan. I trust Landon, and I trust Kent. That's no good. All right. That defeats the purpose of our list. We're spoiled in
the dreaded list. By the way, I should tell the people, and this is even when you say PFF rank the coaches, it's really Dalton Wasserman.
Yeah.
It's one guy at PFF.
They had Nick at like 8, right?
Yeah. Andy was 1, which I had no problem with. Sean Payton was 2, which I got a big problem with. Okay. I think, I think he's overrated. Sean McVay's 3. John Harbaugh's 4. Mike Tomlin's 5. Jim Harbaugh 6. Kyle Shanahan 7. Nick 8. Dan Campbell 9. Kevin Stefanski 10, who I think is a good coach, but bad year, bad situation. Yeah. So I don't know why people get so wound up about these lists, but they do, man. That's part of the reason.
I'm sorry. That's just a stupid list.
I said, well, I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. It's a difference.
Yeah, it's like
people really care about him. I can acknowledge it's stupid and not give a shit.
Yes, so go on to the next list would be my advice, and has always been my advice. But boy, people get worked up over it. Yeah. So it is what it is. But that's his top 10, which I think is stupid. Zander thinks is stupid. You probably think is stupid as a listener, but that's what it is. So move on to the next one.
On to the next one. On to the next one. All right, good stuff, everybody. Appreciate you all for being here. Hit that like button. We'll be right back on Birds 365 in about 3 minutes from now. Thanks for being here. Stay tuned, everybody.